I said I wasn't going to make a video on Great Circle until the DLC came out, but honestly, as of writing this, a month or so after the PS5 release, we have no idea when that's going to happen. And honestly, I'm kinda terrified of it. I really just want to share my opinion on a few specific subjects before the DLC potentially ruins my current enjoyment of the game. I'm not saying it will, but like, you never know. And of course, in glorious KT Takes Too Long fashion, the DLC did get announced for the beginning of September. So I either get this video done before that deadline, or adjust as we go. And I really hate fixing videos mid-production, so late August deadline, here we come. I also retract all my statements from literal seconds ago. The Order of the Giants looks awesome, and I cannot wait to play it. To me, Great Circle is honestly that fourth installment of the original trilogy we never got. It follows after Raiders and carries on the whole Indy fights the axis of evil brilliantly. Unlike a lot of my other smaller random opinion videos, I'm not going to sugarcoat what the subject of this video is mainly about. It's Voss. I just want to talk about Voss, and specifically how well they did setting him up as a character. Yeah, I'm not joking with the title. Firstly, I'm not going to be talking about Dial of Destiny or Crystal Skull. I don't hate those movies, but they're a duology unto themselves and really don't fall into the idea of what I'm discussing. Yes, I know Dial of Destiny also has the evil fellas in it, but still. Secondly, I'm not going to go into depth on the game's actual story. I will obviously reference it from time to time, but that's about it. But I will be talking about a big chunk of the final scenario. And thirdly, spoilers for obvious reasons, mainly for Great Circle, but like if you haven't seen at least Raiders or Crusade, that's more on you and less on me. I'm also going to be politely ignoring Temple of Doom. It's a great film, but is obviously the outlier, being a prequel to Raiders and focusing on a completely different subject. It isn't in the indie punchin' Nazis trilogy, so we're gonna quietly and respectfully put it over here and slot in Great Circle as sort of the middle part of this collection of stories. Now don't that look pretty? Honestly, this game is brilliant. It really does, in my opinion, contend with the original era of titles. And a lot of that is due to my own personal enjoyment of this guy.
Emmerich Voss, with two M's and two S's, like SS.
So if I had to break down Raiders and Crusade, I'd say the main guys to focus on are Arnold Tote, Walter Donovan, and Renee Bellick. Obviously, these movies have more baddies in them, but these are like the top three that could contend with Voss. Especially considering they probably all know each other. Tote and Voss for sure do, they literally work in the same bad guy department. Voss, if I were to do an elevator pitch of him, is essentially evil Indiana Jones. He's a highly skilled archaeologist who fell for the propaganda of fascist Germany, then ended up becoming a part of the SS Occult Division, or the Third Reich Specials Antiquity Collection. Actually, I think he runs it. Yeah, he's apparently the head of the Occult Division, which means he's actually Arnold Tote's boss. Those must have been some pretty interesting work luncheons. Basically, they're the guys who run around and go, "Hey, big man wants your stuff, we're taking it. Why? Because we can." So yeah, while Tote was running around in the desert looking for a golden box with Bellick, Voss was also running around the desert looking for his polka-dotted rocks, amongst other things. I'm trying so hard not to spoil the big reveal in this game too early on in this video, because a part of me fears that this is someone's first introduction to this game's plot. Please, go watch some cutscenes or something, or hey, better yet, go play the game. I really want Great Circle to do well, because I need Wolf 3 in my life. If Indy does well, Nasheen Games does well, which means KT gets Wolf 3. I've been waiting for so long. Sorry, back to the guys. This video is not gonna be me ranking them or even really doing any kind of comparison. I just want the movie heads to see that, like, hey, we got another good one, don't sleep on this game. So yeah, I'm gonna talk about Tote, Bellick, and Donovan for a hot minute, because I feel it's only fair to those few of you who don't actually know who they are. Arnold Tote is probably the easiest to understand as a bad guy. He's an SS major tasked with finding the Ark of the Covenant along with Renee Bellick, and he'll kickstart the main plot of Raiders itself. A conflict in the Himalayas forcing Marion and Indy into a partnership to try and find out what the SS officer is up to. He has a few good key character moments, especially the hangar bit, which still to this day makes me laugh more than it should, and his need to wear full Gestapo getup in the African desert. Like many indie villains, he meets his end in a grotesque way, which has been turned into candles probably more times than it should have been. So maybe due to my lack of trying, I couldn't find anything in Great Circle directly referencing to Tote, other than the fact that he and Voss are in the same boat. Voss even mentions Bellick at one point, as well as the Ark, meaning he does know what happened during that whole excursion. But the game has tons of notes and randomly occurring dialogue, and considering I haven't done my proper video run yet, I probably just didn't come across it. I suppose I can mention Bellic next. By much of the fandom, Bellic seems to be sort of the de facto best Indiana Jones protagonist, and I get it. Because, until now, he was essentially the mirror version of Indiana. He was a renowned archaeologist who decided to use his skills to benefit himself, and less so the fields he studied. He and Indiana becoming rivals due to this. The revelation that he's been helping Tote this whole time, solidifying it. Bellic often tries to reason with Indiana, playing on his need for knowledge and understanding the value of what they're looking for, Indy rightfully punching back as best he can. Bellic also needs his end at the Ark of the Covenant. I'm sure people will get upset because I didn't write out a whole essay on why people see him as the best antagonist, but again, I can't be here all day. As I said, I'm not comparing them, just going over some key points. I suppose Donovan is an outlier in this list, but hey, Crusade is my favorite of the three movies, so it's only fair that I mention him. Donovan is sort of the odd one out because he's neither an archaeologist or an out-and-out Nazi. Well, for the most part. He's an American who really loves collecting antiques and decides that working with the Nazis doesn't seem like such a bad idea. He ends up hiring Indiana's dad to help him find the Grail, the very thing Dr. Jones has been looking for his entire life, and things obviously go south and Indy's gotta save him. The two Joneses get wrapped up in a wacky slapsticky adventure, then eventually find where the Grail lays. Donovan getting tricked into drinking from the wrong one, and once again, meeting a terrible fate. Donovan wasn't necessarily the reason why I loved this movie so much, despite how much I like Julian Glover, but it was more so just the fact that it was the only one that ever played on TV, and I saw it more than most. I still get teary-eyed during any of the scenes where Henry and Indy are having their little moments, and man, the music. Ugh, the Grail motif is fantastic. PT, you're getting off track. Okay, let me finally talk about Voss. Where do I even begin with this guy? From the get-go, they did an excellent job of show don't tell when it came to understanding what kind of villain we were going to get. The whole get-up just screams evil smart guy, but also conveys the idea that he isn't incapable of holding his own in a fight. I was a little confused on the spurs at first, but then I realized that it was sort of common for soldiers back in the day to wear them. I don't know, I think about it a lot more than I should. I need my dumb character designer brain to shut off for a minute. He's multilingual, charismatic, and will use phrenology and psychological analysis to break down those who try to undermine him. The fact that this man finds ways to weaponize language against certain characters just shows how cunning he can be. And worst of all, he's actually smart. Much like Bellic and Donovan, Voss does well at playing the hands he's dealt, being able to quickly assess most situations regardless of how chaotic they are. He's not above being ruthless, but is also a lot more diplomatic than I think even Indy realizes. The first proper encounter these two have, the train station in Giza, instead of panicking, trying to call for guards, or just trying to forcefully take back the situation, Voss instead uses his own intellectual leverage to get Indiana to think more about the dead giant than anything else. The same could also be said for Gina, Indy's companion, the young lady looking for her sister who had been working with Voss. He constantly goes on about the idea of Laura choosing to freely work with him, Gina refusing to accept it, and playing more into Voss's games by getting upset with him. When doing some research on Voss just to tighten up my notes, I had a theory that Voss was potentially younger, given how he portrays himself around Indy, and wait, he's older? How? How is this man 42? This game takes place in the 30s. 40 was old back then. Man, he must have found the greatest secret of them all, drinking plenty of water and getting 8 hours of sleep each night. Cause for a guy with a gross jackal smile, he looks surprisingly good for his age. I'm also consistently mildly annoyed about how immaculate his eyebrows are. Okay, realizing this actually makes my previous thoughts on his relationship with Indy even funnier. Looking at dev interviews and other tidbits, the actual encounters between Voss and Indiana before the game essentially left the two feeling soured for one another. Voss saw Indiana as a Shan and Indiana saw him as a hack. The two essentially didn't see eye to eye on their methods. And why I find that he's older a bit to be funny is because there's so many sections of this game where it feels like Voss is trying to convince Indiana that he's a proper archaeologist and just not some sycophantic Nazi, which he obviously is, but he gets frustrated when Indy doesn't acknowledge his hard work. There's obvious narrative logic to why these back and forths exist. We need Indiana and Voss to interact so the plot can plot, but you know, that's not actually true. Indy at any time could just take Voss's work, throw him down a pit, and be done with it. He's not above killing guys or just stealing what he needs to continue on with his work. You know the reason Indy doesn't? Because with it being very in character, despite him not liking Voss as a person, he's actually interested in what he's doing. He also knows Voss has the upper hand when it comes to the whole situation. Once Indiana finds out about the giants, stones, and the Adanic language, he realizes Voss is already 10 steps ahead of him on this hunt for the Great Circle artifacts. Indy now needs to change gears and get ahead of him in any way he can. And in brilliant villain fashion, Voss is just gonna let him do it because it's heavy lifting he doesn't have to do. Which very much makes sense considering after playing through the whole game again to get footage, I realized that all the other archaeologists we meet and learn about were conscripted into this expedition by Voss to help him. This man is so arrogant, he assumes all these people will do it just because it will be really cool, I promise. But of course, most of them either back out or in the case of Laura Lombardi, unfortunately die just to spite him. This game does such a great job of perpetually giving us narrative reasons as to why one doesn't just kill the other and let each of them carry on. So when we finally get to the points where Voss does want to take Indiana out, it's because he's at his limit. This happens twice in the game, once in Giza where he leaves Indiana to die in the desert, and the second time in Sukhothai where he basically has just had it and decides bullets are the best method. And despite messing up, he still walks away from both ordeals with better odds than his counterpart. The Indiana Jones series really isn't afraid of letting its villains win. Toad and Bellic finding the Ark, Donovan managing to manipulate everyone into getting him the Grail, it's great. Because oh man does it make their downfalls even sweeter. KT, what about the other guy? He's pretty good, right? You mean Gantz? I mean, he's fine for a henchman, but he's the silly one. He's the silly one? Oh, no. He is not the silly one. Okay, let me clarify. In most of the Indiana Jones series, there's generally a serious villain and a silly villain. It's more clear-cut in Raiders, Toth is the silly one, Bellic is the more serious one, and in Crusade, Donovan is just the overall serious character, while a colorful rogues gallery of randos fill in the slapstick quota. You could argue Vogel is somewhat goofy, but But yes, it's a common trope. But no, Victor Gantz is not the silly one. Voss is. Then who's the serious one? Voss is. He's both. I thought that was obvious. You could argue that Locus, a guy I'm barely going to talk about in this video, is the serious villain, but he's not. I love Locus. I could never call him a bad guy. He's just trying to do his thing. The first time we meet Voss, he simultaneously does something so hilarious yet horrifying when he's talking to Father Ventura. He proceeds to use his gross pseudoscience to conclude that Ventura's facial muscles are hiding his sins, all while making the most insane mouth movements. It's like we already know he's a bad guy. Laying it on this thick, this quickly was a bold step, and I love it. I could spend hours talking about this scene as a writer, because oh man, did these actors give me so much good body language to work with. If you're stuck on writing characters, go study some body language of your favorite actors. You won't regret it. We then see him and Gantz yelling at one another, Voss playing it up for laughs, then eventually talking to his little helper, Bergman, about the psychological maladjustments of their associate. Obviously, by this point, you go, oh yeah, Gantz is gonna be the Goofy Cooper. Then we get the monkey scene. Upon learning the giant that Voss needed is dead because of Gantz, he proceeds to question the officer's loyalty, then does, well, this.
Wo waren die Affengeräusche? Ihren peinlichen Versuch, Dominanz zu zeigen, zu unterstreichen.
Alright, game, I see your game. Or at least I thought I did. Indy and Gina fall from the ceiling, knock out Gantz. They talk for a bit. Voss brings up a lot of random crap about Indiana, his issue with women, kids, his dad. It's kind of weird, but like, yeah, by this point, we know this is what he does. He just likes picking at old wounds. But it gets better. Because not only do we proceed with some hilarious slapstick, Voss also decides to just leap into the air like a tiger and tackle Gina. Like, why? I was so confused when I first watched this fight play out, because I really did go for 0 to 11 in no time flat. Indy breaks Voss's nose, Gantz knocks Indy out, almost gets shot by Gina, and it took me until my second time through to realize why Voss catching the hammer had any relevance to begin with. Why is it that my brain can pick up on subtle character emotions but not obvious story adages? Basically, because Gina bonks her head on the shelf, causing the hammer to fall, by the time Gantz looks back, he sees her knocked out and thus assumes Voss is the one who did it. So, because Gantz has the emotional complexity of a 14-year-old boy, believes Voss has saved him and does a 180 on his loyalty, and Voss wastes no time taking advantage of this. The scene after that is the bit most will remember from one of the trailers. It's where Voss proceeds to sweat up a storm and spit on Indy until Jones rightfully headbutts him. Going through this bit again in the game, I just had a single thought. How did Voss know Indy was there? It's common practice in this series for villains to have their moment where they just walk up on Indy after he's done the thing, but like we're pretty much in the middle of nowhere next to the pyramids. How did Voss know? Just good bad guy intuition, I suppose. But he also does the whole I was playing you bit, which potentially means someone saw Indy dip into the old tunnels, told the Germans, then Voss just like waited. The whole area is covered in Nazis, so I wouldn't be surprised. Voss gets news of where this mysterious ship we keep hearing about is, and Gantz volunteers, Voss begging him not to go, pandering on the officer's ego once again. Gantz leaves, Voss has another little talk with his fellow Bergman, then mocks Indy with his hat, then leaves. We don't really see much of him after that until he's finally had enough and just starts blasting. He does bring up the fact that Gantz is dead along with Laura because again, he just knows Jones got out of the sand and went into the Himalayas. This can be more bad guy intuition or Voss having a lot of eyes everywhere, which, let's be real, the Nazis did. Or well, honestly, it's probably him just putting two and two together and hoping he's right. That's probably the most logical outcome. Okay, I'm just dumb. Voss literally just goes, hey, you got the rock I sent Gantz to go get that Laura also had. I guess the little sausage died. Oh, and she's dead too? Well, man, all my plans just didn't go accordingly, did they? Voss is really upset by this point because of how many times Indiana has outsmarted him. Though he does manage to take Gina, and she knees him in the nuts, which is nice. The amount of abuse this woman is allowed to inflict on him without consequences is great. He could have been slapping her around and such, but no, he's a gentleman. He just makes fun of her dead sister instead. Remember how I said that Voss manages to weaponize language? Gina is specifically the character I'm talking about this, so it's proven that Voss does know Italian. He speaks it a few times while he's at the Vatican, then to Gina herself. But he doesn't just do it as a courtesy to her, he only does it when he wants to rile her up or offend her. Okay, yes, obviously from a writer standpoint, he and Gina speaking English is just easier for the audience because this game has so many scenes where native languages are spoken that it could have been frustrating to add in even more. But from an in-universe and character perspective, the two times he does it are extremely cruel and very much something Voss would do. When capturing Gina, he essentially lets slip that the reason Laura was working with him was because of her work and what he had found, but that he also proved that he wasn't above hurting Laura's family, Gina, to get what he wanted. This is why Laura ultimately dies on the Kumans, thinking she's won because the stone is with her. Voss proceeds to ridicule Laura's love of family in her native tongue, thus insulting not only Laura, but also Gina. And I'ma say it, because looking back on this scene again and the subsequent finale, I don't think Voss took Gina to get back at Indiana. I honestly think he did it because by that point, screw it, why not? He might as well show someone what he's accomplished and in some backhanded way compliment Laura, and to show Gina what her sister was working towards. Voss's need for validation from just about anyone, despite his ego and insistence on being in control, really does just bleed through the more you analyze him. Okay, I finally got to the point where I can talk about the last section of this game, because in order to really solidify why Voss is not only amazing, but also the goofiest goober, and what really made me want to do this part of the video, I gotta spoil. So yeah, what has Voss found that has caused him to go looking for these stones? It's the Ark of Noah. Yep, he found it. If the whole idea of mine's bigger wasn't more pertinent, this would be it. Voss literally makes this joke when confronting Indy about how he found the Ark of the Covenant.
Are you not impressed? You found the Ark of the Covenant, yes, but I found Noah's Ark.
Voss is determined that Indy hear him out on what he's found, frustrated on Jones's constant callouts of violence. Voss takes his pistol and insists that they speak as intellectuals, Indy just saying he'll knock his teeth out. This is basically the 11th hour, and Voss just slams us with this banger of a statement.
Fair warning. I have mastered the lethal Japanese hand-to-hand combat art. of karate.
Yep, you heard it, Ricky is a weeb. He's traveled to the sacred land of Nippon to study the hidden arts of karate. I basically had a stroke on stream when I played this scene because I was already so tired and this nearly did me in. The two talk of stories of many cultures that speak of great floods, then Voss proceeds to coax him into the other part of the tent where they carry on. Again, Voss's need for validation is very present. He concludes that all this information was ordained for men like himself and Jones, Indiana very clearly stating that isn't the case. Gina shows up and we once again get Voss using language as a way to insult her, merely stating that he had lied, saying earlier that no one was coming to save her. She tries to shoot him, the chamber empty. Bergman and the other soldiers appear, he ends up taking Indy's bullwhip, drags them into the top of the ark, and proceeds to do his bad guy ritual and drops another banger of a line.
Emmerich Voss, with two M's and two S's, like SS.
This, added with a karate bit, is, yeah, goof meter past 10. It's into the stratosphere by this point. Come on, game, just let me fight him. Oh, good, he got struck by lightning. Serves him right. Okay, now I can fight him. Oh my god, he does know karate! Okay, whip, wait, I don't have it. He does! I never actually lost to Voss, but I got it close a few times. My honest reason was because I felt like losing to him would probably be the most embarrassing thing to ever happen to me in gaming. I couldn't face the world if I knew this dweeb did me in with his weeb powers. And playing through the game again, I made double sure that didn't happen. So yeah, the game basically takes away everything except your ability to punch. Why did they do that? I get that it's the final boss, but come on! I spent so much time collecting books, I don't even get my hat! Yes, this right here. So I spent most of this video unashamedly talking about how much I love Voss, but I wanted to really end it off with something I've been thinking about non-stop since I noticed it. It was obviously just hard to bring it up because it's the entirety of the last sequence which spoils the main twist, the ending plot narrative, and the final boss. So yeah, you go into the last fight with nothing. This is a common trope in gaming, but most of the time the game just goes, oh, you can't use that here, good luck, and leaves it at that. Great Circle spent more time visually executing the logic behind its final fight than I think people realized. Firstly, we get an actual hint of Voss knowing karate back at the train station. This is a bit of a stretch, but just bear with me. Instead of punching Indy or hitting him with something, he chooses to knee him in the face with this awkward pose. He also does that done tiger leap. This is obviously not karate, but it points out how weird he is when it comes to fighting. He then drops the bombshell that he knows it almost as a joke when the two confront one another. This is also the scene where he ends up taking Indy's revolver. Once the encounter with Gina happens, Voss also takes his whip, and the group is now on the ark. Once Voss gets on with his ritual with the stones, the storm hits, the gang gets free, Indy loses his hat, and Voss unloads his pistol into Locust, and now we get to the fight. Indy lost his hat, so no lucky hat, Voss took his revolver, so no gun, and Voss has his bullwhip, so he can actually use it against Indiana. And they made sure to show the player Voss also doesn't have ammo for his pistol, so he can't just shoot Indy and be done with it. So you're left with your fist while you're now combating an enemy with a fighting style you've never experienced, and he's also got your bullwhip so you can't recover as effectively as you're used to, because if you try to move back, Voss just pulls you back in. The final fight of this game makes sense, and I love it. They spent so much time setting up all these little details as almost like a just in case someone noticed. And yeah, if you love movies and you love narrative setups, you'll 100% notice it. Gamers might not, just because we're used to warped logic to get us through certain parts of games. Great Circle doesn't do that to a degree. They put so much effort into making sure the things Indy did or interacted with made sense, that how the characters behaved worked in the environments they were in. I could see all of these little scenarios that Indy goes through in one of the films and be like, yeah, that makes sense. And because I also don't know where to put this, there's also potentially an in-character lore reason for why someone like Voss would know how to use a bullwhip in the first place. Something you can't just pick up and use. And it has to do with Bergman of all people. So this random officer Voss has following him around has a weirdly detailed and pretty intense backstory that you only find out about if you find his letter to his mother. And yeah, this letter is actually pretty easy to miss if you don't do the Voss's Gold Stash mission, because it's in the main area of Voss's camp and extremely hard to get to without the officer's uniform, something you also can't get unless you choose to open up the fighting pit. So yeah, I'm not surprised if people missed it. It details how his mother hates him and how he got the burns on his face by winning a race despite his car being on fire. vampire. He also randomly knows Opfertschnauzen because of his father. This is basically a whip cracking thing he does to fight away the darkness. Did he teach Voss this? Does Voss also know this? Why is it mentioned in the most random way? Why is Bergman's lore so heavy? There's gotta be a reason the devs put this in. Also, due to Voss being a student of Freudian psychology, it honestly makes sense why he'd keep someone like Bergman around. There's so much about this I could dissect, but I'm not gonna do it here. I love you, Birdie. Nothing will ever change that. This game really did just show up and go, hey, I'm like the best thing you'll play in a while, and I'm faithful to the IP I'm based off of. Due to my love of the Indiana Jones movies, and just this game in general, it's definitely going on my top 5 games of all time, and I'm hoping the DLC is good because I really don't want to make an additional video talking about it in a less than favorable light. This video really is just a mess, but honestly, like many of these smaller ones I do on very specific topics, I honestly do it so the eventual main video doesn't get bogged down in weird details. I may still explain why I love the final fight so much, but honestly, explaining why I like Voss really wouldn't need to be on the table. Not in this amount of detail, at least. The irony is that I still feel I could go on even longer dissecting his character. The developers, as well as Mario Scrivelis, all came out and said he's probably the best character Machine Games has ever made, and like, yeah, he is. I love the Wolfenstein series. I love their take on Blasco and Death's Head. Engel is amazing, and of course, we can't forget Ferguson Wyatt. These guys just know how to make a good, solid character. When Marios originally got the gig, he thought he was signing up for Wolf 3. Could you imagine a Wolfenstein-flavored Voss? I'd probably pass away. He would be the textbook example of what a good, evil Nazi bad guy should be. Now I can't stop thinking about it. He could literally be anything. He doesn't need to be an archaeologist. I just need this man's piercing stare and horrible grin making me uncomfortable in another game. Please, please Bethesda, let Machine Games make Wolf 3 now, and put Marios in it. Do that and all my money is yours! I need to end this video because it's going on way longer than it needs to. I've got a lot of other projects planned in the meantime, but yes, I'm very excited to get through the DLC and start planning out the video for the actual game itself. Thank you all so much for watching. If you liked this video and would like to see more, feel free to subscribe. And if you want to help me out in other ways, I also have a Patreon. I'll see you all in the next video.